How's it going, YouTube? Coming at you today with another video, and today, guys, what the brain do is a full guide to Kashtira. This deck is really crazy, and today we're going to be talking about the pure variant of it. I really don't like Kashtira together. I don't think it's that good. I do think, however, that having a lot of utility spots and really being able to utilize a lot of the cash engine is really strong, especially cards like Mind Hacker, just insane. All one-card combos from Unicorn. We'll talk about what that's like and how you really can accomplish that combo too. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's video because there's a lot to talk about. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragon Shield, or Gem, definitely go ahead and do so. All down in the description below. Without further ado, let's hop right on into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the new cards. The first one's up top is going to be the Rise Heart. This card is really crazy. If you control a cash, you can special summon this card from your hand. You are locked into Exceeds. Then once it's summoned, you can go ahead and banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Also banish a Kashtira card from your deck. So there's a lot of different cards that you can go ahead and get rid of here that we'll talk about later on that are really helpful for the strategy. And then this card also becomes a level 7, which of course we love to see it. Level 7s are the name of the game for this deck, so it's really crazy. On the bottom here we have a Rise Heart. This card's even crazier. This card's a Macrocosmos on legs. If Shangri-La uses its effect in the turn, so it doesn't matter if it's yours or your opponent's, you can use any cash monster to go ahead and summon a Rise Heart. So if your opponent has a Shangri-La in the standby phase to use the effect, you can then go ahead and summon a Unicorn in your main phase, and then immediately slap down an Rise Heart, which is pretty insane. Also, this card can go ahead and detach 3 at any time, target card in the field, banish it face down. So it's definitely really cool. And every single time that a card gets banished, this is really important. You can attach one of those cards to this card. So if cards get banished multiple times, it's going to keep gaining material, which is already really nuts. And then you can keep going ahead and using that banish effect once per turn, of course. Moving forward, though, we have the Papaya on the top here. This card allows you to essentially E-Telly out a Kashtira monster, which is pretty crazy. It's going to go in defense. You are Xyz locked, and then if this card is banished, you can target another one of your cash cards, add it to your hand. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this card. Essentially, if you have the Rise Heart in like Tyrman's Kashtira in the grind, you can use Tyrman's Kashtira to banish a card out of your graveyard, and then you can use your Rise Heart to banish the Papaya and then add that card back. So just a lot of really cool ways you can recycle resources. And then you have the Prime Planet beneath, and this is going to be a Rhoda for cash monsters. Monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each different attribute on the field. And then also, if Shangri-La uses its effect, then you can go ahead and target a card in the field, destroy it, and that's only going to be one that you control, so it's not the same thing as the summoning condition. So still really insane card, though. Any card that has 3 effects has to be really good, so definitely Prime Planet. All the planet cards are really crazy too, so definitely a really nice addition to the deck. We do have Fenrir and Unicorn. Fenrir is going to allow you to banish a card on the board that's face up, and then you can also use Unicorn over here to banish a card out of your opponent's extra deck, and you do get to see the whole extra deck, so it's a lot of information that you just get to know for free. But they're both free summons if you control no other monsters. These cards are both very good just in general. The Fenrir is going to allow you to add a monster that's a Kashtira, then the Unicorn will let you add a spell that is a Kashtira card, which is pretty crazy. Of course, you cannot add the Prime Planet, but you can add cards like Birth, which is pretty crazy too, because that card is nuts. And Birth is right here. This card allows you to normal summon a level 7 without tributing, so of course it's just a really good way to extend to your board. You can summon a Kashtira that is banished or in your graveyard once a turn, and then also if your opponent activates a spell card or effect, you can go ahead and target 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, not up to 3, just 3, and then you can go ahead and banish those face down. And then the next thing that we have here is going to be the Shangri-La itself. This card does have a protection effect on it, like Colossus does, which is already really insane because there's a lot of board wipes going around right now. So having this card is really nice. Then you also, during each standby phase, you don't have to like detach or anything. You just get to summon a Kashtira from your deck. But again, in the mirror match, be careful of this because your opponent can just go ahead and make an Rise Heart attack and then make Zeus. So you already know Zeus is really crazy too, and you really want to be mindful of that. So Shangri-La also allows you every single time a card gets banished to go ahead and lock down a zone. So you can lock down 3 zones most commonly, but you also can go for the combo that can lock down all 5 zones, which is even crazier. This card's really nuts, and it's just a really nice card for the archetype. Talking about the Kashtira Scareclaw, this card is specifically just there to beat over Baguska. It is nice because it's a 7, because then you can just like make plays with it afterward, but this is specifically there just to deal with Baguska. So it definitely has a purpose, but it's not really that crazy. It's just nice because it's also level 7. So again, you can just go ahead and combo with it. There is a couple really cool things that you can do in the deck. You can make an Arsenal Falcon and then summon the barrier statue of the Stormwinds, the most abused statue that we've had in the game. Really crazy that you can go ahead and drop this, because if your opponent tries to swing over the statue, you can Rise Heart, banish the monster they tried to attack with. And then if your opponent has another monster, of course, you can go ahead and try to use the effect of Shangri-La to either lock all the zones so they can't summon again, or you can use the effect of Shangri-La to lock a zone and then use field spells and then go ahead and pop. Definitely a lot of different ways you can go ahead and deal with anything that threatens a statue. So this is another really cool option that you can use in the deck to just kind of lock your opponent out of the game with statue. So the next thing that I want to talk about is going to be the 10k combo. So you go into Absolute Dragon and your EMZ, you will go ahead and link it off for Gravity Controller. The Absolute Dragon will summon a Rebellion Dragon, and then you'll overlay the Overlord on top of it. It attacks 3 times, and then Gravity Controller has 1,000 attacks, so therefore it's 10,000 damage, which is pretty nice. It's pretty niche, and there's a lot of cards that you got to add to your extra deck just to be able to pull this off. So it probably won't be able to be played too much, but at the same time, someone's probably going to end up doing this, but just to make you aware, there is a 10k combo within the deck. Also want to talk about Donner. This card is getting pretty popular. So essentially the whole issue with Kashtira is that if your opponent gives you like a Nibiru token, they give you an Ibli or like a Mushroom Man too, which unironically also is just being used right now because you can pass it to your opponent in the end phase and they can't summon things like Unicorn or Fenrir because you can't just free summon them to the board, which is definitely insane. So the way that we go ahead and deal with this is if you have like a Rise Heart or like a hand trap, then you can go ahead and summon either or and then make Donner, and then Donner will allow you to go ahead and trade itself and a monster your opponent controls, so then you can go ahead and just special summon a Kashtira and go about your combo. So all Donner is really here for is to just clear whatever is given to you, so you have the option to go ahead and free summon any Kashtira again. So let's jump right over to what the actual combo looks like. So we're back here with the combo, and this is pretty nice too. It's essentially just off the Unicorn. Unicorn will add the Papaya. Papaya will summon Fenrir. Fenrir will then add the Rise Heart. It will go into the Shangri-La, summon the Rise Heart. Then Rise Heart will go ahead and banish Big Bang, which just allows you to essentially resummon one of the materials off of your Shangri-La, which you can also just add it to your hand and not summon it, which is nice to have follow-up. But at the same time, we're definitely just going for the 1-card combo here. So we're also going to be able to banish some cards off the top of our opponent's deck, then go into the Mind Hacker. Mind Hacker can look at your opponent's extra deck, banish a card, and then you can also, once you banish that card, when a card is banished face down, banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck equal to the number of face down cards you already have. So I've definitely decked somebody out with Mind Hacker already. It's pretty crazy when you hit mid game and they already have like 12 cards banished, because they have to banish another 12. It's pretty insane. And so using the Shangri-La effect to go ahead and lock zones, since this banishes face down and then banishes off the top of the deck, it lets the Shangri-La lock 2 zones, which is pretty crazy. And then the Rise Heart will go ahead and be able to lock down one of the other zones because of Shangri-La's effect as well. So this is just off of 1 card, locking 3 zones, a Mind Hacker and Shangri-La. Pretty crazy. Usually if you're against the mirror match or any kind of deck that has like a Zeus in their extra deck, that's the #1 card you're ripping from your opponent. If you're against tier, then you can rip both the kit at some point, which is still pretty relevant. But at the same time, I think that ripping the Zeus is going to be the #1 thing that you have to go for. And that's because if your opponent's playing any of the Kashtira monsters, they can just go ahead and summon out a Fenrir Unicorn and go Rise Heart into Zeus. And that's really scary. So you really want to make sure that the Zeus option is just not there. But beside that, let's go over to the deck profile and see what that's consisting of. And we're back with the deck profile. I do hope that you enjoyed this video so far. There's so much to talk about, especially with the hand trap lineup. I do think that Ash and Imperm are going to be the #1 and 2 hand trap again, just because there's going to be so many different decks that just are playing D-Shifter and not really caring about the graveyard as much, where Bestials are going to not be super relevant, but they're still going to be really good because Tira's still going to be a really solid deck. And then Bestials are Bestials, right? They're still pretty crazy cards. But I do think that we're going to start relying a little heavier on cards like Ash and Imperm, maybe even Valor and Bell, both very strong cards on their own regard too. I am maining the Eclipse and siding the Concealing. I think that they're both really good in their own respects. Having the judgment for going first is, of course, just going to be so important. Losing out to cards like evenly matched is just not going to be very fun. Tactics is really cool, too. If you are able to send anything off of your board when your opponent has an Arise Heart, that immediately forces your opponent to use Arise Heart, because the Arise Heart is mandatory to attach. So it's definitely something where Tactics just becomes immediately live. I'm not playing the triple Tactics tasking, which is the one that allows you to go ahead and like set from deck, which is crazy. But I do think that triple tax alone is probably just gonna end up being a 3 of regardless. But just having the ways to go ahead and answer a full board like the Eclipse, the Concealing, and then also be able to deal with a couple odds and ends with hand traps and being able to rip from your opponent's hand, the Tactics is going to be really nice as well. Siding the Shifters, of course, it's Shifters. So if you're playing against a deck where it matters, then it really matters, right? Having Kurakar, Divine Incarnate, the card is really just insane. If you haven't already tested out Kurakar, Divine Incarnate, this card is really just one of the best cards that you can play right now. Being able to tribute off so many monsters off your opponent's board, and then it already comes out at 15-15, and then every single monster it tributes, it allows it to gain another 15-15. So it's just a really easy OTK. And then if you don't OTK, if you're able to tribute off a Omni Negate like a Baron, or if your opponent has like a Magnamut in the graveyard, then you can go ahead and summon back Magnamut and then Magnamut Search if you're playing Vishals. So that's really crazy. Then also, one of the things that I really want to point out here is the last card in the extra deck is the Goliath, the Infinitrack Goliath. So we've been seeing a lot of people trying out the Eclipse and the Concealing Light. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of right now is Regeki Dark Hole. So if you Prosperity and banish your Goliath face down, your Rise Heart can then reattach it, and then your Rise Heart cannot be killed by card effects. So it's a really cool way to just go ahead and mitigate that issue, which I always thought was a really huge one. So definitely a really cool way to play around it. I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. This deck is really crazy, and I actually have a really insane variant of this one that I'm going to be posting actually very soon. I think this deck is going to be one of the best decks of the format, the one that I'm going to be showing off. I've been working on it for a little while now, and I'm very excited to be able to bring that to you. It's very similar to a deck that I played in the past, but it is going to be cash related, but that will be on the channel later this week. But other than that, if you want a coaching session over at Medify, definitely go down in the description below, check that out. And if you haven't already joined my Twitch, my Discord, my Instagram, my Twitter, they're all down in the description below as well. I do hope that everyone has a wonderful night. I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.